Kia ora everybody, welcome to the Otautau stream. My name's Rachel and I'm the Catchment Coordinator for Thriving Southland. But today I'm here on behalf of ACE, Aparima Community Environment, and we are working on a stream walk, and that is a part of their 3-year community project. So what's a stream walk, you ask? It's an initiative that came out of this project, and it's all about getting people in the water. It's understanding what you're looking at, it's understanding where your opportunities are, and upskilling you as a community member, as a farmer, to be able to use citizen science to actually assess what a waterway and what a stream might look like. Good, bad, the ugly. It's about empowering you with the tools and the resources to do more and get out there and actually have some fun in these awesome water bodies that we have. So there are 6 catchment groups within ACE, the 6 Aparima catchment groups, and each of them is doing a stream walk. So traditionally we'd have lines of people up here on the banks getting in the water, looking at all the creepy crawlies, assessing what it looks like, but due to current COVID risks we've upskilled and we've got some professionals on board to do a bit of a virtual tour for you today. So ACE actually has 4 work streams on the go at the moment, and stream walks is just one of them. We also have the water testing, which is alongside the stream walk, where we've added 21 new water testing sites into the Aparima catchment. We've got sediment traps on the go, so we've got a network of sediment traps being built by all sorts of farmers in all different locations to give the Aparima farmers a library of sediment traps to look at, reference from and learn from. We're doing future farming. We're looking at what options, what mitigations are out there and available with the current new rules and regulations. We're using Overseer and Farmax, independent consultants, to help work with a different sector of farmers, different farm types, to get more and give options. We're also doing a farm plan work stream, which is all about breaking down the farm plan, trying to make it alive, giving you the options to learn and upskill, to use that farm plan as an asset on your farm. But anyway, back to the stream walk. We hope you have a fabulous time, and today is all about learning, so we hope you enjoy it, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hi everyone, I'm Edwin Maponga. I'm part of the Mid Aparima catchment group, and we were planning to have a stream walk here, but because of COVID we decided to have a virtual one. So welcome to our virtual stream walk, and hopefully this will entice you to join the catchment group. We'd like to see you as part of this awesome project. And me being an import here, I'll introduce you to Peter, who's a legend in this area and lived and breathed this stream in his younger days. So he's going to talk a little bit about that.
My name's Peter Gutzel, and I've lived in Otautau since 1950. I've lived here most of my life. I've been away for a while I was serving my time, but the Otautau stream has always meant a lot to us kids. As kids, we lived on the river. There's a trout rising. It's always been a great place, and probably the one disappointment to me today is to see how it's gone to the pack. And by that I'm talking about the grass. As kids we spent time fishing the river. Now we can't get near the river for weeds. It disappoints me. But however, I got many memories of the river. One time at the top end of George Street, before the flood banks went in, there was a place where we used to catch a lot of eels. We'd catch probably 60 eels at a time a day there. The rabbit board kept killed horses over here at the top end of George Street, and we got our eel bait from there. And we'd go to the Rickety Rackety Bridge, which I'll show you a photo later on, and we'd spend the afternoon there, and we'd talk to the timber lorry driver. There was no nails, I don't think, in the bridge, and it used to rattle like hell when we come across it. Down here, the biggest eel I ever seen on the creek here was probably 6 feet, 8 feet long, and I've never seen a giant like it. The old bridge had been washed out the main street, and and they were doing the bridge up, and they were blasting, and they got this monster out, and they hung it on the end of a front end loader, and I swear to you, the tail was still touching the ground when they put the blade right up, and it was probably 6 to 8 inches round. I've heard of these things, but that was, I actually seen one. I also once seen an otter in the Otautau Creek, down just past where the sawmill is today. And people will laugh at me when I tell them about I'd seen an otter, but they were actually recorded by the Maoris, and they were known as Waikouro. There's information available about them. And I was fishing on the river one day with a rod made from Mum's broom handle, and eyelets from the curtains, and we. I heard this plop on the river, and I looked across, and there was this thing like about the size of a cat swimming it through the river. And now people have said to me, it must have been a rat or a cat you seen. Now it swum diagonally across from me, and when it got to the far side, it stopped and looked at me before it was a burrow there in the bank. And you've got to understand that the rivers, when the sheep were here, it was all smooth. It was all clean grazed right to the river's edge. And this thing went up the bank and watched me for a while. Now it made a V. It was a very, very good swimmer, this thing, and it had no trouble negotiating the river. Now also at the time, I remember there was a lot of cockabullies, water boatmen, and all these sort of little fishes in the river, and right in the shallows they'd come in, and there was also freshwater mussels, which gives me claim to the proof of the otter story, which is not a story, it's the truth. But I think it proves my point. They weren't big mussels, these freshwater mussels, but they're about 2 to 3 inches long, the biggest ones. So there was food here for those things. The floods that have been here over the years. I remember once when the Bailey Bridge, they had a Bailey Bridge on the river here beside the old flour mill, and the Bailey Bridge got flooded. Like they were repairing the bridge at the time, which was the reason for the Bailey Bridge. But the Bailey Bridge, they had it tied to the poplar trees in Harbison Street to stop it getting washed away. We were always looking over the edge of the bridge on our way to school, and here now and again we'd see flounders. I think really the trout are in better order today probably because they don't get fished out like they used to. But further up the creek here, on Sports Day, there was a rifle range, and up on that hill where the park is, the green was the shotguns. The clay bird target shooting on the Labor Day sports. Now, this area up here, there was the car park here at this end. At the farthest end into the base of the hill was a .22 rifle range. So yeah, there's lots of history on this area. One of the things I'd like to see with the Otautau stream, I'd like to see it return to the way that it was in my boyhood, and that simply means getting rid of all this grass so that our kids can go fishing again. And there's plenty of ducks on the river, but to be able to have the contests that we used to have on the river would be just wonderful. Yeah, thank you.
Kia ora, so I'm Ella Lawton from Environment Southland. I lead the Mid Aparima catchment teams, and we're part of the catchment integration group who used to be Land Sustainability. So Environment Southland come along for these days to help with some expert advice and some support to the catchment group and Thriving Southland team And we help with some citizen science tools, in particular a rapid habitat assessment, or RHA for short, and a SMAC test, which is a stream health and monitoring assessment kit. And these are all tools that farmers can use at home to help them better understand their streams and assess their catchments as they, go out visiting friends and family. So what's really important to us too, though, is to make sure that it's tied back to the bigger picture. So how does the health of the stream help to inform farmers on how we might farm and ensure that we're keeping a healthy environment? We also provide some of the broader background around the health of the catchment, which I'll get to in a minute. So we are here in the hope that people might want to engage with us further. So we offer all sorts of advice and support on farm as well, with farm plans if people are interested, and also obviously to other catchment groups who might want further support with these sorts of events. So please get in touch if you're interested. So just a bit about the background of the Otautau and Mid Aparima catchment. So unfortunately, this subcatchment's been heavily modified over the years. There's been a lot of straightening of rivers, which has caused a few problems. So the water quality isn't great, but interestingly, there's a lot of aquatic life in there. So that's an interesting offshoot. So it's particularly challenging. The predominant type of physiographic or land type, soil type, is glade soils, and these soils are often waterlogged and quite heavy, which makes it difficult in times of extreme rain and weather events. So what it also means is that the water's leaving the catchment incredibly quickly, which the result of that means that one of the things that we're trying to do across the catchment is to hopefully start slowing that water down. And so it's a bit of a mind shift change from where we've come from, where we've previously tried to get rid of the water as quickly as possible. So there's also a lot of subsurface drainage, again helping to get rid of that water pretty quickly. So in terms of some of the ways that we might want to think about, from this day, we're looking at the water quality and we're getting a hands-on experience about what that might look like. And we go back to our farms and think, okay, so what can we do about this? So ultimately, we're always looking at what's the best way to stop those contaminants getting into the environment in the first place. And that's really around your management practices. So thinking as upstream as possible. So there's always the big question of stocking rates and how many animals you have on that land, and whether that land is actually capable of carrying those animals and where they could potentially go over winter, for example. But obviously also, the big one is really maintaining your soil structure. So keeping animals out of waterlogged areas and, potentially going to some technologies like low or no-till cultivation practices. So, and then, really looking to keep your stock out of waterways. So that's also critical source areas where the water's running directly into waterways or ephemeral waterways as well. So ultimately, if you're still getting contaminants in the environment, and that's pretty likely, then there are some mitigations that are going to help, but they are sort of a last line of defence rather than your first line. So you're trying to look at those management practices and then go into your mitigations. And for this particular catchment, wide riparian buffers are going to be key because it's catching all those kind of contaminants, in particular your sediment and E. coli, before it hits your waterways. And then one of the work streams that ACE and the subcatchment have been working on is sediment traps, as well as constructed wetlands. So they're also incredibly valuable if you're hoping to capture those nutrients before they hit your waterways. So as I said before, super keen to catch up with people who might be interested around creating farm plans. So we can help to make sure that you're fulfilling your requirements for Environment Southland, but also the industry bodies that you're working with, and we can work with them to create something that's going to work for you. So look forward to hearing from you. And next up is Nathan. He's going to show us a bit more about the rapid habitat assessment and how you might look at the health of your streams on farm.
Thanks, Ella. I'm here to talk about the rapid habitat assessment. I'm Nathan, by the way, work with the catchment integration team. So the rapid habitat assessment contains 10 variables, and we assess them over a reach 20 times the width of the waterway. So the waterway is about 10 metres, so we're going to be looking at an area of about 200 metres, but just for time's sake we're going to do about 150 metres. So we walk up and down the waterway and we look at these 10 variables, and you'll see these below, and we're going to assess each variable, and this will produce a final score, and we can use this score to get an indication of the physical habitat of the waterway. And this is really important for, I guess, looking at improvements in land management practices over time. So if you don't do this monitoring, you don't know what, I guess, improvements are happening in the waterways. So I'll probably just walk up and down the waterway and take you through each parameter. So first parameter is deposited sediment. So that's the percentage of the stream bed covered by fine sediment. So we've had a long dry summer, low flows, so we don't have that flushing effect. So we've got a lot of fine sediment throughout the whole reach. So I'll be walking up and down my 150 metre stretch and looking at how much fine sediment is across the entire stream bed. So as we can see, there's pretty much 100% fine sediment cover. You can tell, you can see the fine sediments trapped in the algae too. And if we have a good rainfall, it would probably wash away a good proportion of this fine sediment. So I'd probably give this a score of 1 when it comes to fine sediment. Moving on to the next one, invertebrate habitat diversity. So we've got, I guess it's the number of substrate types suitable for invertebrates. So that's the bugs in the waterway. So we look at the stream reach. We don't have boulders, but we've got a good proportion of cobble, gravel, so the stream reach is mostly dominated by cobble and gravel habitat. So we've got periphyton, so we've basically got 3 substrate types. So if you look on the chart below, you'll see 4 and 5 below the score of 3, and it says presence of interstitial space scores higher. So because there's a good, I guess, diversity of cobbles and gravel in the stream bed, we can say there's quite a lot of interstitial space. So we would score it a 5, so the higher 3 score. Cool, so I'm going to touch on a couple of key variables. So bank erosion. So when we're looking at bank erosion, we assess the left and right bank separately. So the left bank is looking downstream and the right bank is looking downstream. So as you can see, we're on a slight corner. So when we have a high flow event, we have a heavy amount of erosion, and you can see this on the bank along here. And this creates a lot of sedimentation issues in the waterway. So I'd be scoring this, since we're seeing quite a lot of active erosion happening along this bank and up this reach, I'd probably give it a score 50%. So I'd write that down as a 4. And on the right bank, because it's not, it's on the inside of the corner, we don't get that hydraulic pressure on the bank. So we've still got a good amount of long grass protecting that bank from erosion. So this would get a higher score, so probably around a score of 8 or 9. So I add the 8 and the 5 together, and they'll give me an average score of 13. So half that, so they'll give us a score of 6 or 7 for the rapid habitat assessment. So the next variable I want to touch on is riparian shade. So as you can see here, it's quite an open site, and in the waterway we have a lot of algae growing, and this tends to grow in an area where we have high water temperatures and not enough shade. So we've got a lot of long grass on these banks, and if we wanted to get this algae down, we want to increase the shade. So in a perfect world, we would have mature trees providing a canopy, and that would reduce the water temperatures and reduce the amount of algae that grows in the water. Okay, so we've touched on 3 variables now. You can find the rest of the information on our website. This will be linked below. It's important to remember that you don't need to be an expert to do this. Anyone can do this at home on your local stream. Bear in mind that we're looking at the trend over time. You want to see how putting up your buffers, your fencing has improved your waterway over time. So I'm just filling this cloudy tube up with water, and we use it to get an indication of how clear the water is, and that gives us a good idea of how much fine sediment and particulate matter is in the water. If we have too much fine sediment and particulate matter in the water, we find that the stream beds get smothered, and that impacts on the fish and aquatic life. So I basically filled the tube up with water. I've got a wee magnet here, and it's got a wee black marker, and I've got a ruler on the tube, and I slide the wee magnet up and down until I can no longer see the wee black disc, and then I bring it back until I find that point when it goes just in and out of sight, and then I take a reading off the cloudy tube. So this is telling me that in these water conditions we can see this disc 54 centimetres away. So if you were to repeat this at different times throughout the year, you'll see that the water cloudy changes, and that gives you a good indication of how much suspended sediment is in the water column. So what I'm doing here is collecting a bug sample. So what I'm doing is MCI sampling. So that's the Macroinvertebrate Community Index. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking a bug sample, and we're using the bugs to provide an indicator of how healthy the stream is. In particular, we like to see the EPT bugs. So they're the pollution sensitive bugs. So that's your stoneflies, mayflies and caddisflies. Where you have highly polluted waterways, you don't tend to find high numbers of these insects. If you do find high numbers of these insects, that's a pretty good indicator that you've got good water quality. By disturbing the sediment, the bugs lift themselves up off the rocks and float into the net. So I'm just doing this in a couple of different areas to get a good representation of what's going on in this reach. You don't need any fancy equipment to do this at home. You can use the kitchen sieve, or you can just use an old bug net that you have lying around. So I've got my bug sample collected. I'll just go and put it in the tray, and we can have a look at what's in here. So I've just taken a quick sample, and what I see immediately, we have, so if you look to the bottom right hand corner, you can see what looks like a midge. So these are generally flies when they grow up and mature. And then this wee tiny insect above it is a mayfly. So they're part of the EPT taxa, so you find them in reasonably good water quality streams when they're in high abundance. Just because you see them, it doesn't necessarily mean the stream is in really good water quality. So we're seeing worms in here. So worms score quite low on the MCI index, so they have a score of around 1 or 2. So you don't really want to find too many worms in your sample. So at a quick glance, this sample's dominated by a lot of worms, and we generally see this when there's a lot of sediment in the waterway, because the worms like to hide in that sediment. And we've got a low number of EPT taxa, simply because there's not enough suitable habitat for the EPT taxa to live in. So that's just a little taster of what's happening in your waterway. If you would like assistance with sampling, please contact Environment Southland. We'd be more than happy to help. Take your kids out, do this with your kids. It's fun and it's a great way to get to know what's in your waterway.
Cool. G'day everyone, my name's Cohen, I'm from Southland Fish and Game, and today we're doing a bit of electric fishing on the Otautau stream here. This electric fishing technique's a common technique that we'll use to survey what sort of fish are living in a specific stretch of water. Today I'm imagining we should catch some juvenile trout, probably a few bullies. We might catch some tuna as well, probably longfin and shortfin tuna, but it'll be interesting to see if they're about. They might be here around the edges. But yeah, we'll just go and jump in and have a wee go. Okay, so with the electric fishing machine, it's a pretty cool bit of kit. What it'll do is it will momentarily stun the fish when we're in there zapping around. When they're stunned, we can scoop them up with the net and then we put them in the bucket, and that gives us the opportunity to count the fish and record what we're seeing. As far as monitoring that Fish and Game's doing with regards to sports fish at the moment in the Aparima catchment, we do a lot of drift diving around the Opio and Etelvale areas. We do that each year, and things are looking pretty good in that stretch of river. We've had fairly consistent trout numbers over the last probably 5 to 8 years, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how the fishery is looking up that way. With regards to angler usage, we also look at that. We've got the National Angler Survey on at the moment, where we're surveying anglers around the country to try and get an estimate of usage of these fisheries. So that data's not yet in, but what we have seen over the last 20 odd years is a general decline in the usage of our lowland stream fisheries like the Otautau stream here. Yeah, things have dropped back. Anglers aren't visiting them the same as they were sort of 20 years ago. That may be due to sort of things like perceptions around water quality, but it also might be due to things like the invertebrates and the fish not being there. It's unfortunate some of our lowland streams have suffered from some of the intensification, and what we've seen is the mayflies that we used to see 20, 30 years ago in the streams. We're not seeing those, and if the mayflies aren't there, the trout aren't there the same, and if the trout aren't there, then the anglers aren't there. So we have seen a decrease in some of the angler usage of some of our smaller streams. Yeah, so I'm just zapping through the riffles here. What we'll often find is a lot of small juvenile trout and also bullies living in the riffles. I'm just seeing if I can, there's a few scattering about. A little bit hard to catch without a bigger net, but we'll persevere. Got another bully there, I think. Oh, this is the ideal habitat for small fish to be hiding in the riffles. They're away from predators, and yeah, plenty of tucker coming through. The electric fishing machine also works much better in the shallower water. Got a trout. It's always good. Nice small brown trout. It's always good to see. It means there's a bit of spawning happening when you're seeing small fish like that. Oh, he's there. Some time to recover. Can be quite hard to get out of this weed. Oh, there he goes. That one I think looks like a short fin to me. Oh, maybe.
Say a little bit about how you identify long and short fin deals.
Yep. So one of my favourite ways to figure out which one's a short fin and which one's a long fin is to look at how wrinkly they are when they bend. And this one is not particularly wrinkly when he bends. They really have very definitive folds in the eel if it's a long fin, where this one's not looking very wrinkly when he folds at all. It's almost like the long fins have too much skin, whereas this guy, he doesn't have, you can see there's only very small creases there. So I'm 100% certain that's a short fin, but you can tell the difference based on the lengths of the fins as well, but we won't do that because it's going to be very hard to try and point out fins with a wiggly eel. But I prefer to use the method just using the wrinkles. Yeah, so just to reiterate, no fish were harmed in the making of this electric fishing machine demonstration. They were only momentarily stunned when we were at the electric fishing machine. They're all been released, all unharmed, so no one has to worry there. But no, I'm pretty happy with what we've seen today. We've got both species of tuna, we've got some bullies, and we've got a trout. So yeah, things are looking pretty good on that front. And yeah, it's just great that Fish and Game can be part of these catchment groups. It's great that these catchment groups have formed. Excellent initiative, and yeah, hopefully we can all work together to see waterways like this one improve.
How great was that? How much talent do we have down in here in Southland? And the Otautau stream, been assessed, you know, we've been able to look at lots of different citizen science, lots of different tools that now you are all aware of and capable of doing yourself. So we encourage you to head to either the Thriving Southland website, the Environment Southland website, or follow ACE on Facebook to keep updated and also to get access to all of these fabulous tools and resources that we've shown you here today. Next year, we hope to be doing the stream walk in person and we'd love to see you there. Keep an eye out for other events coming out from ACE and the Mid Aparima catchment group. Thank you for watching.